some ways, at some point in your life, everybody can be a lost rider. Good morning and welcome to the second half of this week's News from the Camp House, listening post of Texas Sportsman Association. I tell you what, you can also pick this up on the LostRiderPodcast.com. You don't want to get up at 6:30 on Saturday morning and listen to the radio. You can pick up all these little conversations, interviews on the LostRiderPodcast.com. All right, you can also go to YouTube. You pick them up there too. So, anyhow, we're here now this morning. We're with Captain Jay Nichols. He is a fishing guide and hunting guide that works out of Rockport. Works all down around Baffin Bay, works all around Rockport. And I asked him about, the issues that we've talked about so much in the last few weeks about desal plants, and how much of that is, I'm going to say it's in my head, that, that's my deal, is to go out and find these issues to report on. But how much of that is actually, do the guides and the fishermen and the people, living here, how much of that do they really is going on? How much of it's real? Or is this something we're worrying about? How much of it's real? Now, I'm going to answer another one of Jay's questions that he asked. He asked about the desal plant at Harbor Island at Port Aransas, which is a seawater desal plant, which is it's more or less owned by the Port of Corpus Christi Authority. It's being built and leased by the Nueces River Authority. It will be the largest seawater desal plant in the United States, starting off at 100 million gallons a day production, with possibility of doing a lot more. And we have to also say that the CCA's position on this, the Coastal Conservation Association's position on this, is that they're in favor of it as long as it's a deep water, offshore deep water intake and discharge. And now here's the question that Jay is worried about, because he was worried about this. How does it go back to being regular water if you put it back? And for one thing, supposedly this water's treated again before it gets discharged. All right. Now, I'm gonna answer your question with a question. Do you remember the strategic oil reserves? They're strategic oil reserves up there around Freeport, and they're salt domes, and those salt domes were drilled out in the 80s, and that's how they got rid of that, because they drilled them out, they flushed them out with fresh water, and they pumped the discharge back into the Gulf. But it was deep water discharge. But you pump it. When you're doing it, you got, 42, 48-inch pipeline going out. You've got diffusers ever so far. And then, by the time, I think they said they pumped 1 million to 1.2 million barrels a day back into the Gulf with no environmental impact. And that if you didn't, when the EPA took their samples, as long as you didn't take a sample of a plume, or right out of the plume, where it came out of a diffuser, as long as you moved off a few feet, you had seawater. That this discharge immediately dissipated back into being seawater. And if you went beside the pipe, right down on the floor, you had seawater. And that's coming, and I asked the gentleman who elaborated all this to me a few years ago, I asked him, how do you know this? And he said, because I did it. So Aggie buddy. And so they did that. They pumped out those strategic oil reserves, and that's the same time they did that in the 80s, 1984, at Bryan Mound and 1987 at the Big Hill oil reserves. And now it's the same type of technology I'm sure that they intend on using over here at Harbor Island at Port Aransas. And everybody's giving their blessing to it, I guess, because it's been done in the past and because it's a deep water discharge.
If it's a deep water discharge, that can really change a lot for everybody, because if they dropped it right back into where they're pulling it out of, it's going to go straight in our bay systems. And that area, you got the Lighthouse Lakes, you've got Super Flats, Mud Island, all those areas there. And then around the corner, you've got East Flats and Shamrock Island. And those are pretty much estuaries for the young fish, you know. And it seems like, dumping it out right there would make it into a hypersaline air environment, just like Baffin Bay is, But if they're going to dump it offshore, then that can make a big difference.
It make a big difference in people being okay with it.
Yes.
Right. And the other deal, the CCA's position on the brackish aquifers and putting that water back into the creek, their position on that is they would rather see a seawater desal plant making hundreds of millions of gallons a day. They'd rather see that with a deep water discharge than see these brackish aquifers where they are making 3 to 5 million 100 gallons a day and then putting it back in the creek. And the big problem is, I guess the thinking behind that is until they can prove that they can match the water that they're putting it into, people just don't trust it.
Definitely. And in those creeks that the water comes through that's fresh water, you'd have to think about if they're dumping a whole lot of water that's treated or whatever into it, whether it comes out salinity higher or whether it comes out fresh, you're now doubling or tripling the export of water going into the bay system. And so, you would have to find a way to match it. But when you're dumping it into a creek that's fresh water, if they're matching it to the salinity level in Baffin Bay, then those creeks are now going to be full of salinity.
Yeah.
And again,
that is another problem.
All the grass is dying in those creeks, and it's, I'm serious. I reached down and grabbed a handful of it, and it was not fresh water like before.
All right. Okay. Now, and the question that we can't answer is the answer, what everyone is signed off on, what everybody agrees on is just take it and shoot it down a reinjection well. All right. So then the question is, what happens when you can't do that anymore? When you fill up whatever it is you're pumping it into, and you wind up with, I don't know if you're familiar with the orphan wells out in West Texas.
No, but
where they've got these abandoned wells that are puking up some of that frack water that they're pumping it down to reinjection wells. You pump it down this well and it comes out this other well over here that's been abandoned that wasn't plugged correctly. And so you've got problems with orphan wells out in West Texas. Now, that's an issue that not everybody has heard of yet. It's not a new issue, but it's coming to the forefront that right now with some of the political campaigns with your railroad commission, because you've got these orphan wells in West Texas, and they've been shooting this frack water down these reinjection wells for so long, it's coming back up. And what do you do? What do you do when that happens in South Texas? Sooner or later, you got to treat that water and do something with it.
Very true. I've been around wells and seen them fracking them, and then they pull the water out and they have to run it to another place and put it into a downhole to be able to get rid of it.
It's a money deal, and I mean it's people are always going to do what's the least expensive, but sooner or later, it's going to have to all be treated and done. So one of the things they did when they pumped out the Bryan Mound Strategic Oil Reserve, they took a lot of the minerals, a lot of the chlorides, and a lot of that stuff out of that salt water, out of the discharge, and they had places to go with it. They had uses for it. So that's that's always one of the things that would be taken into consideration. But it's all, in the grand scheme of things, even though we've had the capability for, I always say 30, 40 years, it hasn't been practiced. And until it's practiced and done in practice, people don't trust it.
Well, if they can treat sewers,
Yes, that's all. That's exactly correct.
They can sit there and pull everybody's sewer lines out and put it into a little treatment area and turn it around and make it into drinking water.
Yes. Then they can fix this other
there's
stuff.
Got to be something that can be done.
Yes, I've said that how many times? It's called toilet to tap. And that's exactly what they do in your major municipalities, all your big cities. They got water that's been through that cycle. How many times? Surely you can do the same thing with industrial water.
I used to build reverse osmosis systems for a company in San Antonio, and we would put them in pallets and send them off to the government where they'd put them in battleships. And they would literally take their toilet water and recycle it and make it into clean water again.
Right.
So if you can do it really, again, toilet to tap, like you said. Yeah. If you can do it for that, why can't you take the salt out of something? And instead of dropping the salt back out into the main ocean, my other curious question was, and I don't know how this could work, but we have sea salt. Mm-hmm. So why couldn't they extract that salt from the whole system and make salt for cattle or for people? Or, we've got mineral blocks with salt in it for deer. Just about anything, wildlife could use it probably.
Yeah.
And possibly even make it into salt for people,
It's all, I believe you're 100% correct. And it's just something that we need to talk about more and get everybody aware of. And I think is the more aware people are, well, I'll tell you exactly what we always say. If you give good people good information, they can make good decisions.
Yes, sir.
And I believe that.
Definitely.
Jay, we're out of time this morning, but I sure appreciate you being with us.
I appreciate it myself. Had a good time.
All right, folks. Hope you enjoyed it this weekend. Now, y'all go out. This weekend's edition was also brought to us by Shaw's Bend Social Club. Country club folks who don't have a country club. Go out, have a good weekend, have a lot of fun, be safe, and y'all just remember, pretty much any day is sure a good day to be out in the woods.